What's up, geeks and gamers? It's Odin coming back to you with another video, and today, of course, is our box office breakdown for the weekend. The numbers just got updated, though, of course, I will say that whenever it comes to Disney films, for some reason, they like to really take their time revealing how much the film has actually made up to this point, so these numbers can definitely change as the day goes by, and by the time this video goes live, knowing that Jeremy likes to try and make sure the algorithm is just right for when these videos are released, the numbers could be different. But this is the basic overview for the domestic numbers, which the domestic numbers are the ones that are not likely going to change between now and later on. It is the foreign totals that usually take a little bit longer to come in. Box Office Mojo is usually good about getting all of those numbers in on time, but normally when it comes to a Disney film, that is just not the case. So, to no one's surprise here, Aladdin came in at first. Came in at number one with $86.1 million, coming in at 4,476 theaters, and having many of them showing it in 3D and some of the more premium formats. It makes a lot of sense that Aladdin would be making this much money, especially since now with Rotten Tomatoes changing its system once again. For those that don't know, Rotten Tomatoes now has a system where you have to verify that you actually purchased a ticket in order to be able to leave a review. Now, some might say, oh, well, there's an all-audience score. The problem, though, is which is the score that gets the most prominence. It is the verified audience score, and then if you click over to the audience score, then you see everyone else's reviews that are not able to verify their tickets, and you just know what the narrative is going to be. Oh, well, you can't trust that all audience score, because that includes all the trolls. That includes all of the, the evil sexists and racists out there that are trying to drive down this film. Let me be someone who is honest about this film. This film is a C-level movie. I'm going to say right there, it's not an F. It's not even a D. It is a movie that just does not need to exist. We're talking here about Aladdin. It's a movie that does not need to exist. It is a movie that would have been better served to have been a total retelling from a different perspective, because they had a couple of really great performances in there, specifically Naomi Scott's Jasmine. Seriously, had this film been called Jasmine, and had it been a similar story, again, in a similar area, but only from her perspective, with her being more given more screen time and maybe given more songs, you know what? I would have been okay with that, because she has an amazing voice, like in real life. No real auto-tune for her voice compared to Will Smith's, who's auto-tuned out the wazoo, which again, Will Smith is not the most cringeworthy person in the movie. He's trying his best, but he's no Robin Williams, and that's really what it comes down to. It becomes a giant CGI affair. You have a Jafar that is just awful, a Jafar that is not menacing. I'm not terrified of him at all, and that's not what Jafar is supposed to be. They make certain changes to do certain things, and I just overall think that it is not well executed because of that, which is very surprising, because normally I like the people that were behind this specific project. But Aladdin comes in with the number one at the domestic box office, coming with 86.1. John Wick Chapter 3 coming in strong once again with a $24.3 million, 57% drop from next week. So John Wick 3 is going to make some money, definitely is going to confirm, or rather is definitely going to justify the fact that they have already confirmed there will be a John Wick Chapter 4, which, as I said, I'm excited about, because this story is one that you can continue to tell. However, as long as they can continue to listen to the fans, continue to provide the things that the fans want, I'm going to be on board with it, even though I usually don't like sequels. The fact that this is an original property that is somewhat new, meaning that the property itself did not exist until the first John Wick actually came into being, makes me a little bit more forgiving of this story continuing on, versus things like Aladdin, which has been around since the 90s and was even then based off of a previous story and seriously had no reason to be redone, especially with the music not really being all that impressive, except, of course, anything with Naomi Scott in it is fantastic. Avengers Endgame came in another strong weekend, $16.8 million. Detective Pikachu with $13.3 million. So we see a lot of these films doing well. Brightburn was a new release this week, making $7.5 million. This is, of course, the indie film, the indie horror film, where what if Superman went bad as a kid? What if he, instead of following the path that his father set out for him, what if instead he followed the path of what he was meant to be, which was essentially to rule the world? And it's interesting just to see the different directions that they take with that, and overall, it was an enjoyable film. I gave it a B+, very enjoyable, highly recommend Brightburn. Is it the best film in the world? Is it based off of something previous, so is it really that original? Not necessarily, but I think that what they do is they take a concept, twist it, and I actually really do like the way they do that. Sometimes I think there is a justification for taking a previous established story, twisting it just a little bit, and being able to bring out a very good story, being able to bring out and justify a story's existence. So let's actually dive into these numbers a little bit further. So Aladdin, as we said, 86.1 million for its opening weekend here for the domestic market, coming in with 207 million worldwide. And so it is on a very good start. The biggest question is going to be, is it going to be able to withstand the gigantic film release that Godzilla King of the Monsters is going to have next week. That is the film that is going to own the box office next week. I have no doubt in my mind it's going to have so many theaters available. It's going to be available in the IMAX. I'm sure there'll be 3D showings of that film too, but also it's a film that many people are hyped for. It's one of the people's most anticipated films of the year, and Aladdin I don't see having a strong holdover from week 1 to week 2 because, as I said, it's just a meh film. Even the critics can't fully get on board with this film, and it's so funny to see the various things, the various problems they have with it. In fact, there are some people out there that are critical of the woman, Naomi Scott, who's playing Jasmine, because she is too white. Their own words, which is just ridiculous because as long as she looks like Jasmine, and she looks like Jasmine, and she is one of the only actors on screen where I'm like, nope, I believe that this is the character, and you know what, if she keeps on playing Jasmine as far as going to events and singing these songs, hey, I have no problem with that because I believe it. The others, it's like, nah, I could live without them. Not to say they're bad people. Again, the guy that plays, for example, Aladdin seems like a really nice guy, and I'm not trying to take anything away from him, but he's just very bland in the performance, nothing really special about it. And then Will Smith plays Will Smith, and so therefore there are some things that are going to be really funny because it's Will Smith, and he's a very charismatic guy, and he's trying the very best that he can. But it's not Robin Williams, it's not the genie that is meant to be, and that's the reason why I think that it would have been better for them to have just said, hey, how about instead we focus on Jasmine, since that's what the movie does anyway. It just focuses more so on Jasmine and her story of being a woman at this time and not being listened to, and that's why her song Speechless is so powerful. And yes, I think that the song is actually really good because it doesn't really dive into anything that it shouldn't, because it is actual historical fact that women would have been treated a certain way at this time in history, and all she is doing is trying to say, hey, I have a voice too. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that, seeing especially that part of that already existed in the original film in the first place. But of course, that is just my perspective. You might have a different one. Production budget was $183 million. It cost a lot of money, especially for all the CGI effects that they have, which again, for the most part, were just meh, just weren't necessary. Question is going to be, is it going to have a gigantic drop-off because of Godzilla next week? And if that happens, a question mark comes into being. Is this movie going to be profitable, or is it at least going to break even? We really can't know quite just yet. It is still a very impressive number, but as you can see, that domestic foreign total is very, very close to each other, and what that tells us is that the overseas market is not going bonkers for this film. The domestic market is somewhat excited for this film, and I don't really think it's going to hold over until next week. John Wick Chapter 3 is doing extremely well, $175.3 million so far. Doing much better here domestically, of course, because it is a property, as being as violent as it is, that is going to be a lot more susceptible to having a more positive American audience experience. I still think this film is one of the best when it comes to action fight sequences. If I had to rank them, I don't rank them as far as the best films because I have to rank them based on what their strengths are. So I would say the first film is the most complete film as far as it being the most tight, to being the most well-constructed film. The second film, to me, has the best story. I love the fact that they go into the Continental, they go into the behind the scenes with of course, the very ending, it having the excommunicado concept being brought into play, and I love the story of the high table and all that other stuff they bring into it. 3, that strength of 3 that it has over the others is that it has some of the best fight sequences in any John Wick film thus far, including an amazing one that happens within the first 20 minutes of the film where it's all knives. And I seriously, the whole time I'm watching it, I was trying to find out, okay, when did they use CGI? When did they use CGI? When did they use props? Because they had to use it for some. And there's one image where literally you see a knife go into someone's eye, and even then, the second time, I've seen it twice so far, even then I was staring, I was like, okay, where is the CGI? Where is it actually going in? And you cannot tell the difference. It looks so realistic. And that's why this film is so good, because it tries to focus more so on the practical effects, stunt teams, stunt work, and this has it in spades. And I would recommend, if you like stunt team, stunt work stuff, boom, this is the film for you. Glad to see this film is doing very well, definitely justifying Chapter 4, and still continuing to make profit at this point. And that's all that it really needs to do. It doesn't need to make $400 million. It does not need to make the $1 billion of some of the bigger franchises out there, because it doesn't cost nearly as much to make. And this is a film that's not only going to do well at the box office, but also on home release as well, because people want to own this stuff. I already want to own John Wick Chapter 3. Avengers Endgame, here's the big question mark. Let me go ahead and refresh, because I do want to see if they have been updating the numbers. This is a number that is going to update later on today. I'm just telling you this right now, because all of they've done so far is they've added in about, what, $4 to $5 million that it made in the domestic markets. That means that it has not added in any of the foreign totals yet. Now, I'm not trying to say that the foreign totals are going to be a gigantic boost, but my guess, my bet is that once those foreign totals come in, this film is going to get very, very, very close to that $2 billion foreign market, and also is going to potentially officially pass Avatar. Now, if it doesn't pass Avatar, it's going to be at 2.7 something. Now, whether it's 2.78, 2.79, I'm not exactly sure. But as I said, this weekend, next weekend, it's going to pass Avatar. It's not going to reach $300 million, or rather $3 billion like I thought it had the potential to, because it has had a major slowdown in the foreign market. But at this point in time, because it's still making money domestically and also in the foreign markets too, even though China did not give it its extension, it's still making enough in other countries to be able to make that up. And the reason why I'm able to say this is because when you go to these, it'll tell you when the last numbers were updated. As you can see from this list, right now it is May 26th. The last time the foreign markets were updated was of the 19th of May. Meaning that all of these countries, including China, which was at $608 million, which is an insane amount, but all of these countries have not updated their box office numbers since then. Now, once those numbers come in, though, that is when we will get this number. And again, I think we're going to get it over the $2.7 billion mark. And I would say that there's a good chance you'll hear either today or next week it has officially passed Avatar for the overall best, highest worldwide total. Now, of course, that's all before adjusting for inflation, but still, the fact that it will be able to have that #1 spot over a film like Avatar makes me very happy, because you all know my thoughts about Avatar. The last film is the smallest one of the bunch. It only cost $6 million to make, which really, honestly, is a surprise, because the visual effects they use to make some of the things happen, because obviously he's a kid with superpowers, is awesome. Seriously, to me, this was the best $6 million that has ever been spent. Elizabeth Banks is in this film. James Gunn did produce it, and I know that there are many people associated with this channel that have certain thoughts and opinions about James Gunn. I share in those to an extent. I do think that the things he said were despicable and that they needed to be looked into. However, at the same time, too, he did not direct it. He simply produced it, but it was his family members that made the overall film, and I thought it was pretty good. Again, I can separate art from the artist and say that this was still a pretty good film. For having only spent $6 million on it and not doing that much more for promotion, meaning the total cost was probably around $9 million, this film, very likely by the end of its run, is going to have made its money back, and it's really not going to be that much because, again, independent film, not available in too many theaters. Still, overall, good fun. Horror film, I would say, thriller film, if you like that type of stuff, especially if you like superhero films that are kind of turned on their head, this might be the film for you. But guys, what are y'all's thoughts? Have you seen Brightburn? Do you think Avengers Endgame is finally going to pass Avatar this weekend, next weekend? As I said, those foreign totals have not come in yet. Will it get close this weekend? Will it pass it next weekend? I would say it's a pretty much 100% certainty that's going to pass Avatar. The question is, by how much? John Wick Chapter 3, if you've not seen it yet, please watch Chapter 1, watch Chapter 2, go out of your way to see Chapter 3 because it is fantastic. A little on the long side, but still a very good film nonetheless. Aladdin, overall, I would say this is a film that you can skip. There's really no reason for this film to exist. It does not add anything to the story other than a new song, which they could have just done a music video and spent the money on the music video, and overall it would have been a better impact, I would say, because Speechless is a great song. But guys, what are y'all's thoughts about this? Again, Guy Ritchie directed this one. It was very surprising for me to not get a good Guy Ritchie film, but I would love to hear your thoughts about all of these films that we talked about, but also any other films. Are you excited for? Again, we have got Godzilla, King of the Monsters, coming out next weekend. I really do think it's going to make some pretty bonkers box office numbers. I don't think it's going to break Avatar records. I don't think it's going to break Endgame records as far as openings are concerned. But I think that it could do something like Jurassic World numbers, where it makes over $1 billion, for sure. The question is, how much is it going to make opening weekend? How much is it going to take away from the markets of things like Aladdin? Because, again, Aladdin is going to need some legs in order to be able to remain profitable, because you see 207 versus 183, but you have to add on top of that how much it costs for marketing, of which they spend a lot of money on marketing for, and also the fact that they only get about 60% of the entire worldwide total by the end of its run anyway, so they still got a little money to make up. Is that movie, is the situation going to happen where Godzilla, King of the Monsters, and then of course the slate of new releases for the summer going to put movies like this on the back burner and have them break even at best, or make a small profit, or even lose money? And if that is the case, I think that should be a very loud and clear statement to Disney. Stop remaking movies that do not need to be remade, especially when it comes to classics. That's all I'm going to say about that. But I would love to hear all of your thoughts about this in the comments below. If you like this video, smash that like button. Give us a subscribe over here on the Geeks and Gamers channel. But also, go check me out over on the Odin's Movie Vlog channel. YouTube's been playing around with the algorithm, and so people have been unsubbed just by, no choice of their own, have just been unsubbed. The bells have been unrung. And also, too, people have just probably been leaving because they overall are just like, man, I don't like how you say about these things, and man, I don't like your one opinion, and so I'm going to unsub. Again, you can unsub for any reason that you want, but I would appreciate any love, any support that you could possibly give, because it helps me out a lot. This summer, I'm going to be doing a lot more content, a lot more streams, a lot more different varieties, talking about things like wrestling, talking about morning shows, all the things, and all of that schedule is going to be posted over the next 24 hours or so. So if you want more of that, if that stuff interests you, please let me know. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day, and as always, God bless.